another 80s golden age of comedy. I'm your host, Bruce Starr, and I get to have so much fun on these shows because most times I invited people that I've known 30, 35, 40 years ago that I worked with them when I was their personal appearance agent out in Hollywood. Worked mostly out of the Improv on Melrose, and of course, had lots of experiences at the Comedy Store, and got to know a lot of the comedians that just worked the Comedy Store also. But mainly, I spent literally almost every night, 6 days a week, every month, all year at the Improv during the 80s. And it gave me the opportunity to meet and get to know all those comedians that, boom, and it just exploded right in front of my eyes when Evening at the Improv went into production and the show started airing all around the country. And that's when I became a personal appearance agent for comedians who, hey, their big time agents didn't want to waste their time getting them $2,000 or $3,000 weekend gigs, and they didn't want to call. So, being their friend and having a roommate that knew everybody, he said, "Why don't you call? Why don't you ask them if you could make the calls for them?" And so I did. And after a while, I had 35 stand-up comedians. But the other day, about 2 weeks ago, not the other day, a couple of weeks ago, I went to see my friend Bruce Smirnoff perform right here in South Florida. And I really had no idea about any of the other guys on the card. There was like 5 or 6 guys, but I would say that 3 or 4 were, kind of headliners, and who I never even knew. And one of the guys was Don Gavin. Don is known as the Godfather of Boston comedy. And another guy, Richie Minervini, he was known as the kind of the king of Long Island. And then after we all settled in and we were sitting around, this guy walks in, bigger than life himself. I thought he was the mayor of stand-up comedy. I didn't know who he was. I thought, who is this guy? And then, we didn't talk too much. We didn't really get to know each other. You didn't know who I was, and I really didn't know who you was until we went outside and the show started, and Jimmy Shubert killed the audience.
Yeah, it was a fun night. I mean, like you said, I mean, this is the only gig that your buddy Bruce Smirnoff will do because he's retired. But Don Gavin is the godfather of Boston comedy. He's a great guy. He's hilariously funny. Richie Minervini is hilariously funny, and also, like you said, so to hang out with those guys, to hear their stories, to get to work with them, to have the honor of working with them, and it was. It's connected to our Tours restaurant in North Boca, and man, they brought a sold out show in there, and I mean, it feels good to work, to be able to get to work a little bit, to do some stand up because this whole thing for the last year has seemed so normal. I mean, we're not being able to work, the crowds aren't allowed to gather, and so I'm glad I moved. I mean, I moved from Los Angeles to Florida. Just because it's open, and I just I can't just sit on my couch. I want to make people laugh. So try to get back to some kind of normalcy. But it was great. It was a great show, man. A lot of fun.
Yeah, I've done about 3 dozen of these shows, and the vast majority with the comedians that I either represented or got to know, and man, they're sitting home. Most of the guys are in LA, and a lot of them are still sitting home. Yeah, I feel bad. What was interesting was to watch Bruce. I've talked about this on other shows. To watch Bruce go back and forth pacing, because he hadn't really worked more than maybe once the whole year.
Well, but that also never goes away. If you're a stand-up comic, you're always the anticipation of it is worse than the actual event. So yeah, you're pacing, and so but yeah, it's I had to get out of LA. I mean, I don't get what how what anybody's. I don't think LA is coming back for another 3 to 5 years. That's my own personal opinion. Uh, because so many people have left. I mean, a lot of people have just left and said, you're not going to let me, so, but it's interesting. Certainly going to change the dynamics of the country for sure. A lot of people are moving from California, going to all other places. So, yeah, I don't blame anybody for anything during the pandemic. I really don't. I mean, anybody could have to do it. People are trying to do backyard shows. People are trying to do parking lot shows. People are trying to do. I'm getting ready to go to Royersford, Pennsylvania, and they got a big outdoor dome, Russell Peters, so people can sit outside under a dome with some heaters and whatever. So I mean, it's kind of yeah, it's people are trying to get back to some kind of normalcy, but I think the longer people wait, it's like it's becoming like it's kind of underground, it's like go see some stand-up comedy, but yeah, it's just good to make people laugh. I mean, I think people like when you do comedy for people now, it's almost like you're doing them a mitzvah for them
Oh yeah.
because they feel so like they haven't been able to do that in a year. I don't know if that affects the mental health, not being able to laugh or have a good time. So certainly puts an emphasis on how important it is. It is certainly essential, I think.
And I think that showed up in that night when you guys performed because they were howling for
Yeah,
literally 2 hours. I mean, Bruce Smirnoff killed. I mean, I don't remember
yeah.
him
Well,
that
you have to
funny.
realize there's a level of talent that you get when a Bruce Smirnoff goes on, when a Don Gavin goes on, when a Richard Minervini go on, and I have to follow these beasts of comedy. I mean, so it's like everybody was a little nervous, just nervous enough that you're looking at your notes. Everybody had a set list, So, but it was great. I mean, you're right. It felt great to do it. It was a good night. It was a real good night.
Yeah, you
And so
said
they're trying to turn that into like a regular weekend comedy club. We'll see what happens.
I sure hope so because you guys the audience was with you, and even though it was like the round tables and it was distant, and I'm thinking, oh, how's this going to work? But I was standing in the back, and they were howling in the back,
Yeah.
so I don't think it mattered. It was they just people are ready to laugh. They need to get that chemistry going in their bodies again.
Yeah. Well, we're doing it here in Florida. And Texas obviously is starting to keep at least the scene alive because, I feel bad for a lot of people that own businesses, especially comedy clubs that haven't been allowed to open or, make, it's like everybody's making a third of what they made, like salary wise, or even less than that. And even just to keep the clubs going. I want to keep the clubs going. If clubs are trying to get back, I told a couple people, I'm going to do it for whatever you need it. As long as I get my flight, my hotel covered, let's go. We can make some money. Great. I mean, I just want to keep them open,
I
you
think
know?
that's great. So, you know what I want to do now, Jimmy? I don't know anything about you, and I know the people who are going to watch this show are going to want to know about Jimmy and even little Jimmy. Where did you
Well,
grow up? I know you're a Philly guy.
yeah, I am a Philly guy. I grew up in Philadelphia. I grew up, I'm one of six brothers.
Oh,
My father was a detective in the city of Philadelphia. He was a homicide detective for and then he finished his career as major crimes in the city of Philadelphia. Mom was a school teacher. Just kind of grew up it's just a big Irish household, and and a great decade. I mean, I grew up in like the 70s, early 80s, and I went to I got to the Comedy Store during the 80s. I was a doorman there. I got to watch all the brilliant comedians of the era. I mean, I got to watch Gary Shandling and then guys like Louis Anderson and Andrew Dice Clay and Sam Kinison and just just Arsenio Hall. Eddie Murphy would come in. I mean, shoot. Uh, God, the first night I worked there was the night they had. It was a year after Andy Kaufman's death, and this character he used to do called Tony Clifton, which is name, but he had since then given the character to. So I just was thinking of his name. What's his name? Bob Zamuda. Bob Zamuda, who was Andy's best friend.
Yeah.
And so everybody thought that this was going to be like, oh, Andy's prayed a plank on everybody and have all this news coverage. And it turned into a real, just, Tony Clifton flicking lit cigarettes at people. And the show was over in like 15 minutes. It was crazy. But that was the first night I worked at the Comedy Store as a
Wow.
doorman. So
Wow.
for me, that was like college, obviously. I mean, everybody goes there. You just get to. I mean, it's really the Comedy Store is a majestic place. I'm wearing my Comedy Store T-shirt. Um, I would tell people to go support the Comedy Store, buy their merch, help them out during this tough time because they can't do shows. But yeah, I mean,
Let me ask you, Jimmy, did your family have anything to do with you going into comedy?
well, you know what's interesting? When I was like 9 years old, I got a magic set for Christmas. And as Steve Martin says, that's the poor man's way in the show business is through magic. I used to be a skilled magician. I was probably a professional magician by the time I was 15 years old.
Wow.
I had doves, I had levitations, I had about like 6 bookings a month, 7 bookings. I mean, I would have booked more, but I could only do it on the weekends because I was in school. And I mean, I was thinking about this the other day. This is how great. And so I did that till I was about 16, 17, 18. And then like I just kind of graduated to comedy clubs. I had all this performing experience. I mean, being a magician is one thing. It's very, I mean, it's believe me, it's a lot of hours of practice and discipline. I also went to a magnet school. I went to the Philadelphia Creative and Performing Arts High School in Philadelphia, studying acting. I was kind of a pretty, I cultivated and developed talents that I knew would suit me later in life because I wanted to be, I knew this was the profession I wanted to be. I wanted to be an actor. I wanted to be a comedian. I wanted to do those things. And so, and I've set out to be, pretty successful at both actually, which is, but I've been in a couple movies and television shows. I've been on the King of Queens, probably like 15 episodes.
Wow.
Entourage. I did 4 episodes of Entourage, 2 episodes of ER. I've done, 2 Broke Girls, Marin show on FX. I've done a show called Back in the Game where I got to do a couple scenes with James Caan. I mean, I've had a nice, kind of cool little acting career on the side, which is, which I love. I mean, to me, that I'm kind of living my best life. I want to do a bunch of acting stuff, which I got a chance to do. I was on a Disney show called Zeke and Luther. I played Bobby Dicey, the world's greatest daredevil. I've done a couple of those acting things, which I enjoy immensely, and then I'm really pretty busy as a stand-up comedian, touring the country as casinos and stuff. I mean, pre-pandemic anyway, I certainly was. I mean, I had gone to India with Russell Peters. I've done many of those armed forces entertainment shows and Department of Defense shows. I went to Afghanistan with Drew Carey. I've entertained the military over there. I've done. And I've traveled the world, like all over South America. We did an armed forces entertainment show. We went to Greenland. We went to Gitmo. We did shows for the troops in Honduras and El Salvador and Panama. Like that, there's people that don't realize how many the military is all over the place, and you get to do these shows and entertain these guys. And I started doing that probably 10 years ago. And I was managed to do it, like at least get 1 or 2 of those in every year for a couple of weeks. For me, those were the trips. I mean, I've done 3 tours of China, not on Armed Forces Entertainment, but this was, comedy clubs that have booked me over there to do. They had runs of comedy, believe it or not. And I toured Asia 3 times with the Beijing, Shanghai, Wuzhou, Sushi. I've also gone to Singapore, Macau, to Hong Kong. I've been through, Kosovo, all through Germany, Edelweiss, Munich, doing shows. I've done festivals in Ireland. I mean, I've had a great career, man. I mean, my career, I love. People go, well, you could be more famous, but I don't want to be. I mean, I have a great life doing something I love to do. And it's really a couple different aspects. And about 3 summers ago, I kind of had they always say you have these unlived lives. I always often wondered how I kept with the magic and decided to go into magic professionally, where I would be and stuff. And so, I went through like a midlife magic crisis about 10 years ago. And I started practicing again and started working with cards. And the summer of 2017, I auditioned to become a magician member of the Magic Castle, which I passed first time in, which was great. And so I'm a magician member of the Magic Castle. That's a huge
Yeah, sure,
accomplishment
sure,
for me.
sure.
And and I get to do stand up. I mean, last night we were out. I saw Bruce Smirnoff. There's a. I'm in Delray Beach, Florida now, and there's a club here. It's a bar club. It's a tough little room. It's really kind of like you really got to get up and get them on your side and stuff. But all the comedians were hanging out. It reminded me of like, I mean, Ahmed Ahmed was there and Flip Schultz. It reminded me of like a Comedy Store Monday night, and we had so much fun. I mean, I love hanging out with comedians, man. They're my favorite people because they just, I mean, we're always laughing. I mean, I just love comedians, man. I feel so blessed to have been able to do this for 30 years. Been able to blessed that I got to travel the world just doing what I love to do, and get to do movies and TV and stuff. So I am just incredibly grateful and blessed. If I could say that one more time. No, but I just feel like lucky, and now I mean, I'm kind of getting older. I mean, I don't know if I want to be as busy, or certainly as busy as like I'm not going to be flying all over the world anymore after the pandemic. I'll tell you that. So I'm glad I got that out of the way. But now I'd like to, develop and kind of create a comedy club. I mean, it's interesting how comedy's just spreading out now. It used to be New York and LA, but now it's Texas and Florida, only because they're open. And who knows how this thing's going to reset itself.
That's right.
And look, I just want the art form to survive, but we're also living in a cancel culture world. We're living in it. We're just living in the upside down, as they call it in Stranger Things. They call it the upside down, where nothing makes sense. It's just like that. You could cancel comedians for things that they say. I mean, I know people it's happened to, and they're not justifiably. It's just it was that someone accused you, and then no
That,
evidence,
that's it.
and
Yeah.
that's all they need, and that's all the fuck they need. So, yeah, but when I was a doorman at the Comedy Store, I will tell you, I got to watch the greatest comedians, and it was an education to me. Like I never set out to be famous. I just wanted to be the funniest fucking comedian anyone's ever saw. I want to be as funny as I was capable of being. I want to be the funniest fucking comedian you've ever saw in your life. And so I worked on that, and it's a lot of writing, and I find inspiration and everything. It still turns me on, that process of coming up and crafting an idea and delivering it in a way that just gets maximum laughs. And once you get them on board, there's nothing greater than that in the world. And so, yeah, and I got to watch that at the Comedy Store and learn. That was my college. And like you said, Gary Shandling, Jeff Cesario.
I miss Gary. I really miss being able to see him and what he could have come up with.
I mean, I started and I toured with Sam Kinison. I mean, that was like Sam Kinison took me on the road with him and the Outlaws of Comedy. And I did that for about 5 years. That was an
Wow.
amazing, immensely. I mean, I was doing arenas of 6,300, 60. I mean, look, I know they were there to see Sam, but you still get the experience of making like 6,300 people laugh in your
Wow.
hometown in Philadelphia, playing the Spectrum. Well, I
Wow.
used to go watch the 76ers, and you come out there and you do these giant shows. I mean, that's where I started my career. Like, I mean, I was funny enough to, but you're doing 20 minutes in front of Sam. Yeah, they're there to see Sam, but you get to feel that. You get to feel all that. And I got to watch Sam Kinison, who at the time was probably the most controversial comedian in America, bar none. I mean, except no substitutes. I mean, he was, yeah, make no mistake about it. Him and Andrew Dice Clay. I got to watch Andrew Dice Clay. This is before, like, I mean, he was even a superstar. But I mean, Dice, I used to watch him just murder rooms, man. You could see the audience's heads going back and forth. You could see this from the back of the room. I mean, dude, I got to watch some of the great, like, Arsenio Hall brought me on stage in the main room at the Comedy Store for the first time. He just introduced me and had me come up. I love Arsenio. I got to have friendships with these guys. I got to talk to Shandling about like he was doing a joke about, his contacts were so thick, and he was in his, and I said to him, he was like, I could tell he was working some of my contact lenses are thick. I said, you know, you could say my contact lens is so thick when cars come down the street at night, they hit their high beams at me, you know, like he was doing, I just gave him that tagline. I go, you know, like cars hit their high beams at me or something. And he liked that idea. He liked the premise. And then I just got to talk to him for about 20 minutes about stand up. Because I said, look, I watch you every night. I mean, do you know that? And he was as gracious as could be, as were a lot of guys. I mean, Paul Mooney. I mean, I got to talk to Paul Mooney, who's a fucking legendary fucking dude. And he, like every once in a while, he'd give you these great nuggets of, you know, little bits to unlocking, you know, to get to be authentic. I used to watch Mooney every night. Paul Mooney, I mean, this guy, I mean, just nobody could do what he could do. I'm a comedy store guy. That's my thing. But I also spent years at the Improv. I mean, I was one of those guys who would cross over and do both clubs and knew everybody. And you know, I wasn't. I mean, I was just always a working comedian. I was one of the cool kids, if you know what I'm saying. I was just a grinder. I was a road dog, but that's where I made my living, and that's where I got better, and that's why I'm such a fucking monster of comedy. If I can get a cramp, pat myself on the back, but if you have to follow fucking Bruce Smirnoff, Richard Ravini, and Don Gavin, you better be a monster of fucking comedy because those guys, I mean, they're hilariously funny. All those guys. Here's the great thing. What I loved about that show the other night is that everybody watched everybody.
Yeah.
I mean, because there was a lot of mutual respect, and everybody was quite frank. I mean, Don Gavin killed so hard. I was looking at my set list.
I didn't know who he was, and I'm saying,
just
who was
legendary.
this older gentleman? I didn't know who he was, and then when he went out there, I was like, oh my.
Oh, you know, I've worked with Don several times over the years. Once in Montreal, where he was hosting one of the shows. Also, I did the Nantucket Comedy Festival with Don.
Wow.
We got to hang out, and Kenny Rogerson and Christy Stefano. This like this past year. I mean, I got my manager, Rick Dorfman. I met him there, and now I'm with him. But so you know, I was the time I work with Don. But yeah, Don's great. I love all those Boston guys: Lenny Clark, Don Gavin. I mean, you know, that was such an epicenter. Like you talk about the LA comedy scene, but there was also a couple epicenters of comedy that have a very good comedy pedigree. And Boston is just one of those places. All the comedians pride themselves in being, I mean, they're just great comics. And they, you know, Lenny Clark and good God, you know, who's you Dick and me, great Steve Sweeney, you know, Kenny Rogerson. These guys are all
Stephen Wright came from out there.
Yeah, Stephen Wright, Joe Rogan, Bill Burr. I mean, Patrice O'Neill. They all started in Boston. I mean, Boston's got a very good comedy pedigree. New York as well. San Francisco for that alternative comedy. You know, but you know, I was always I want to go trade punchlines with the best guys in the country. I said, if you really think you're funny or you want to get funny, then go trade punchlines with the best. I just thought Los Angeles, I mean, you got to see all these monsters. I mean, you know, the great thing about the Comedy Store is you can learn as much of what not to do by watching a bad comedian as you could. You go, oh, well, let's, you know, you know, I got to watch a lot and learn a lot. And I was paying attention, and I was always talking comedy. I mean, you know, when you start out in comedy, you have to live it, breathe it, eat it, sleep it, consume it.
That's right.
It has to fucking take over your being because, you know, you have to educate yourself about like all the other comics that came before you. I mean, George Carlin's always been my guy. I think George Carlin's great. I even love his older stuff. I mean, like, you know, he gets into a little bit preachy, but he's not wrong. Right. He's not wrong. The things he was saying, he was not wrong.
Never,
I mean, you
never.
Know, it almost becomes prophetic.
Now,
you know, some of the things that he said, and
when he said that we weren't going to be a part of that club, no way in hell were we going to be a part of that club. It's more true now than before.
Yeah. So you know, and then of course you have cancel culture also, which is, I mean, man, that's a big fucking problem. That's like, you know, like I can't stand these fucking people. Like if I don't like something, I change the channel. I keep fucking moving. I mean, you know, to me, it seems like seeing something on the internet or just, you know, and choosing to not scroll past it, and something that upsets you. and not scroll past it. It's like choosing to see a fucking pile of dog shit on the sidewalk and just go and step right in it. Like, you know what I mean? And that's what it seems like
Good
these people
analogy.
do. I mean, it seems like we're surrounded by more boy, just the level of ineptness and the people that are really have no self-awareness about, I mean, yeah, it's embarrassing. It really is. It's embarrassing but people don't look at it like that. I mean, the people said like little Johnny can't read. Well, it's worse than fucking little Johnny can't read. Little Johnny can't read. Little Johnny can't think. Little Johnny can't do any critical thinking. It's worse than so fucking little Johnny confuses thinking with feeling, and so fucking he can't control the way he feels about something. So he once limits your ability to even discuss it or talking about it in a civil or rational manner, or even attempt to get a joke about it. I mean, it's it's like. And then you get all these fucking I mean I don't know, like these, such a minority that have the largest voice, that have the loudest mouths.
Yeah.
I mean, that's and I just I can really, I'm like this close to going off the grid, just going off the grid, just not deal with all the fucking bullshit. I mean, I just, go grow your own food, go fucking surf it and go swim in the ocean every morning and fuck everybody. I mean, I gotta tell you, I mean, whew, I mean, because what we do, it's a study of, humanity. It's a self-study. It's you study the human condition so you can make fun of it and find out what makes people laugh and tick and all, and the psychology of it and all that. And I just like, it's getting tougher and tougher to make people laugh because the people want to get offended like that. You forgot, like, I mean, God, man, you look at, I was just watching the All in the Family, and it amazes me that you could not do a show like that now. That show had a level of honesty to it, and it also looked at things like we were actually. I mean, we not only have we not progressed in our ability to, we've actually regressed. And people want to rip down statues of inanimate objects. Because they don't remind you of shit. You weren't even fucking alive then. You know what the fuck it is. You don't know what a fucking history book looks like. You haven't been taught history. You've been taught someone's version of it, but it's not actual history. Read the fucking book. Know what the fuck you're talking about. I mean, Jesus, it's
Oh, by the way, there's no cursing on this show.
Did I curse?
No, you didn't. I was just being a little preemptive.
Oh, well, I wasn't even thinking about it until you said something. Now I want to drop in an F-bomb just to do it. No, yeah. So it's interesting, but the time in comedy, the 80s obviously was a great time. I mean, if you think about this realistically, like you think about from 1960 to 1980, 20 years, what the development and the pioneering of the art form of stand-up comedy. And comedy, I think a lot of people don't realize this, but comedy, stand-up comedy, the way we do it in this country, it's uniquely American. It's like jazz music. It's an American art form. And and you can make a case, could be made that it's the second oldest profession in the world. Bring me the girls and then bring me the court jester or whatever.
Really?
But the way we do stand up, well, I look like Mort Saul when he would tuck the newspaper under his arms with the jokes on it, and that from to go to vaudeville to the nightclub comedy when Mort Saul and then Fat Jackie Leonard and freaking and then you had Lenny Bruce. And then you had out of Lenny Bruce, you had the counterculture icons of Carlin and Pryor became these pop, and all the people they influenced, and the Robert Kleins and the whole Long Island gang. I mean, you could do a trace from it. The Boston comedians have always been amazing. San Francisco, Los Angeles. I mean, Chicago also has a huge comedy pedigree of funny comedians. So it's it's good to be a part of it, man. Like I came along at the right time. Like, you could really make a living doing this. I don't know that you could always make a living doing this. Like, I mean, I know guys like, Don Rickles did and stuff like that, but like there weren't really comedy clubs back in like the the 60s.
That's right.
I know that there wasn't that they would do the Hungry Eye, they would do these other venues. Guys would open for guys. That's what the comedian's job was. The guys would open for Sinatra, or guys like Johnny Dark, the guys that also worked at the Comedy Store. He was one of these guys. Gary Muledeal opened for the Everly Brothers or whatever. That's how your career was. You toured open shows for these guys, and it was amazing. The once comedy clubs was an idea that came about like 73, 74, 75, the Improv in New York that went to Los Angeles, and the clubs that you could, and then these clubs started springing up all over the country. I mean, it's amazing to a point where you could actually make a living going from club to club to club. That was a development that happened in 20 years, from like 1970 to 19, like everybody was opening up a comedy club. And now there's guys out there make their living in comedy clubs who the layperson wouldn't know, but are incredibly funny touring comedians that make a great living doing something they love to do. But you tell people, even if you ask people, okay, who are your five favorite comedians? You have to go living or dead. But I mean, most people can only name 5 comedians.
Did you start in Philly? I mean,
yes, I did. I was doing a Comedy Factory outlet, and the Comedy Factory outlet was where I started. Then there was the Comedy Works on 2nd Street, and you could like do the mics there. There was also a couple of the Ambler Cabaret. You had these like one-nighters in these college towns that you could pop and do. I started with Keith Robinson, who friggin' I love Keith. Keith and me started like in Philly together. Me, him, a guy named George Sharp, and a couple other guys that
I had Steve Young on the show.
Oh yeah. Oh, that's great. Yeah, Steve Young ran the Comedy Works, but I mean that's the first place I saw Jay Leno. I was a kid. I saw a guy named the legendary Wid. His real name's Michael Baldwin, but he was a guy that was doing Carrot Top's act before Carrot Top was doing. I mean, this guy was legendary Wid was one of the first guys I saw to really make me laugh. Go, yeah, that's right. I want to do something. I want to do something like that. And he was just hilarious. I mean, it was props, and some of it was punny, and some of it was great, and some of it was, but he would just left the stage a mess, and it was hilarious, man. I mean, the legendary Wid, I love him.
I remember when Lenny did that one night at the Improv. He just loaded the stage with all his props, and I never forgot that. I really hadn't seen him perform since, and I know he, of course, is down in Florida. You mentioned him.
Oh yeah, I've seen Lenny. I talked to Lenny at Bruce's house. He called him. Great. I mean, he's 80 years old. So I mean, he's in good shape. Sounded normal, but I mean, like, you could do stand up. What are you gonna be running around stage? More pigs, more shit. You'd be in a mental institution. But I used to love watching him work. I know one night I get to hang out with him, Kevin James, Gary Valentine, guy named Rock Rubin. Like they were all Long Island guys that knew about Lenny, and they loved Lenny. So and Lenny went up and did well, I'm gonna do an impression of a hanger trying to fuck a grapefruit, and then he threw the fucking grapefruit against the wall. I mean, it was fucking it was controlled insanity. I love watching stuff like that. I've seen so many. I'm a huge fan of comedy too. I love watching. I can watch guys make me laugh. Smirnoff fucking puts me on the floor. I just love it. I like if I'm having stuff making it funny, you deliver like Blue Smirnoff, and you can laugh with it. Gunsy knivesy, But no, I mean, it's real. The cool thing is that you get to watch all these people, and I've had the greatest friends and the greatest relationships with people that I've met in comedy in this industry over the years, and to be able to, I just made a decision based on the pandemic. So, but I'm actually really liking life in Florida.
Yeah.
And I'll probably, if I could stay at this place, I'll probably stay here for the rest of my days and I travel. I mean, I'm leaving tomorrow on an airplane. I have to fly to Philly. I got to show up in New Jersey, and I got to show out in Royersford, Pennsylvania. And so I got a couple shows. I'm flying up to see my folks. It's also my birthday weekend, so I want to see my brother.
Hey, I'm April 12th.
Oh, nice. Well, happy birthday. Happy early birthday. I'm the 28th. And then and I fly back Sunday because I'm doing shows down here in Palm Beach. And then I do the West Palm Beach Improv, and then I do Sunrise Theater, the Comedy Corner, Sunrise Theater. And so, trying to eat back and get back to some kind of normalcy, at least for me. I say I'm taking a whole month of April off. My rent's paid till July. I mean, I'm happy. I'm getting to work a little bit. I'm enjoying my life, and so we'll see what happens. But it's been a great ride so far. So,
tell me a little bit about literally the air in Florida. I mean, I love it. Every time I leave, I go out to LA, live out there, I come back here. I go out to LA again, I come back here. I know it's different. It's not as exciting. You're not going to hope for the phone rings and you're not going to go out for a sitcom. But tell me actually how it's been for you.
Hey, listen, I got news for you. I've done all that already. I've done all that. I've had 3 development deals. I've shot in 3 pilots. I've done all that. I mean, it's, I'm not, look, I just want to be happy, man. I don't give a fuck. I mean, look, you know what I mean? The last thing I fucking want to do is be living back in LA. I mean, it's just, I had 20 fucking homeless people living underneath the bridge, 3 blocks from my house. If I can audition, as we're doing this podcast, this is how I could audition now. I don't have to be in LA to audition.
That's right. You have the best of both worlds.
Not only that, but I'll tell you something else. Most of they call it, there's called Atlanta, Hollywood South. They're shooting 60 to 80 television shows being shot in Atlanta now. Number 1, because it's open. Number 2, because of the tax incentives. And so people go up there and they shoot these pilots. And a lot of it's being shot in Atlanta. Got to be honest with you. So it's kind of like New Hollywood. So like I said, everything's changing. No one knows what's going to eventually come up. And I got to tell you something with the advent of social media, which I look, social media is a great wasteland of our era, of our modern age. I think, Twitter and Instagram and Facebook are internet ghettos designed to eradicate original thought or original ideas. But at the same time, it's also giving you a direct line to an audience that wants to follow you, and they want to follow you and they want you to give them stuff to see. So you can create your own things now. You don't have to do that anymore. That's an old business model that goes back to the 80s. It's an old business model that goes back to the 80s and 90s. It doesn't hold true today. If you build an online audience, Hollywood will come calling to suck your dick. They always do, because they can make the money off a guy like that. That's why you got all these YouTube stars are doing comedy.
By the way, no dick jokes. I won't allow any dick jokes on this show.
And you call it a comedy show. And you have the nerve to call it a comedy show. No. But anyway, so yeah, it's it is what it is. We'll see where it's at. But yeah, I'm glad that you got to see the show there, because we're going to be doing it quite regularly. In fact, they got another show back there at the Arturo's. It's upstairs. It's David Sadman's Speakeasy Comedy Lounge. They got another show with some great local guys, some great touring professionals.
I'm going to come down. You'll be there?
Yeah. No, I'll be in Philly. I'm leaving tomorrow.
When are you going to be performing down here again? You said Palm Beach.
Sunday night, I'm at Monroe's Strip Club, and it's like their VIP. It's like their VIP room. They've turned into a comedy club on Sunday nights.
Where is this?
It's up in West Palm Beach, Monroe's Strip Club.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a strip club, but it's called Red Light Comedy, and we go up there and we do some shows and stuff. So, but yeah, I just got back from Aruba. I'm on my way to Philly. I get back on Sunday. I'm doing a show in West Palm Beach, rocking and rolling. You know what I mean? Living my best life.
Well, I want you to know that I'm going to be a part of getting the comedians back on stage and on the road, and I'd love to talk with you more about it in the coming days and weeks when you're back from your trip, because people need to laugh, and I'm putting together some comedy concerts, some comedy tours.
Good, man. Well, that's awesome. And you got my information, so definitely stay in touch. Thanks for having me on, Bruce. I greatly appreciate it. We'll catch up soon, man. All right.
Okay, my friend. Thank you.
Thank you, my brother. Be well.
80s golden age of comedy with a very funny guy, Jimmy Shubert. Thanks for being on the show, Jimmy. I appreciate it. We'll see you again here on the 80s golden age of comedy. Bye-bye, everybody. See you again.